Absolute Ben 10 is the biggest thing in the fandom right now. The art is polarizing, the designs are controversial. With every new issue and cover release, the quality just keeps evolving, pushing the franchise into darker, uncharted territory. But are they actually better than the 2005 classic that started it all? Today we're going head to head, classic versus absolute, to see which version truly defines the franchise. Let's start with the most important device in the universe, the Omnitrix. The new comic introduces a very different design from the classic one. I'm going to be honest, when I first saw it, I hated this design. But after actually reading the comic and understanding the lore, I think this is the best Omnitrix we've gotten so far. Instead of a clean metal watch, the new design is packed with exposed wires and a symbiote-like texture. And the reasoning is perfectly logical. This Omnitrix attaches itself by slithering and coiling around Ben's wrist. It behaves less like a predictable digital watch and more like living, unknowable alien biotechnology actively looking for its host. Whereas the original show's Omnitrix never entirely made sense to me in how it physically attached to Ben. I mean, the classic watch didn't have any mechanical clasps or thrusters to jump or fly like Iron Man armor parts. The new comic grounds the tech in reality, and the AI is also smart. It transforms him automatically when it sees threat, which makes me feel it might already have the master control. So this first point goes to the comic Omnitrix. Moving on to the human character designs, they are generally okay. Grandpa Max is rocking a beard and glasses, which fits the gritty tone perfectly, and I don't have any problem with it. Furthermore, Ben and Gwen are drawn so small that it actually feels like they are genuinely 10-year-old kids. But my biggest problem is with Gwen. The classic version looked iconic, but the comic version gave her a forehead that is just way too big, and it honestly ruined the design. Now, later issues definitely tried to fix this proportional problem, but it's still not enough. So the classic era gets the point just for Gwen. Next, we have easily the most loved alien design of this comic run, Heatblast. This design looks like an incredible fusion of classic Heatblast and the terrifying Predator 6'6". It leans into a much darker, almost Carnitrix style aesthetic, which also heavily reminds me of one of the original scrapped concept arts for classic Heatblast. He was also supposed to get those shoulder thrusters, similar to the ones Ben 10,000 used to have. You can see it in the concept art. I don't know why they didn't do that in the comic, but still he looking cool. I have to give the point to the comic version for this absolute masterpiece. 4 Arms looks like an absolute beast in this Dynamite run. His face is incredibly intimidating, and he actually wears a battle-ready Snyder-esque cinematic outfit. When you put them side by side, the classic version feels a bit bland compared to this one. I think it's mostly because classic 4 Arms was just wearing Ben's t-shirt. The comic design makes him look like a true Tetramand warrior. Point to the comic. Diamondhead. Okay, this one is really hard for me, but I have to prefer the classic on this one. The only thing I genuinely like about the absolute art style here is Diamondhead's face and head, but the whole body? It looks bad. They gave him this broken, stone-like skin that looks very similar to the Thing from Marvel's Fantastic Four, but that cracked texture doesn't work for a Petrosapien. Instead of looking indestructible, it looks like somebody broke him into pieces and reattached him with glue. The classic version looked incredibly sleek, especially his Ben 10,000 design. Point goes to classic Cannonbolt. The absolute art style turns Cannonbolt into a straight-up horror monster with those jagged teeth. What's fascinating is his biology. His eyeballs look like the yellow shells of his body, and his face stays on the outside, becoming a part of his physical rolling mechanism. This implies a brilliant piece of lore. He might actually be able to see through the yellow shells on the rest of his body while rolling. It's a terrifying but genius update. For Overflow, we don't have an official classic design, so I am using this incredible fan-made classic Overflow for comparison. But even comparing the two, Absolute Overflow wins this one. I mean, he looks like an absolute tank in this design. You can clearly see the 2 heavy water cannons mounted on his shoulders, making his power scaling feel incredibly high. Point to Absolute. Now let's talk about the smartest alien in the room, Gray Matter. I have to admit, the absolute version definitely nails a much more creepy, true extraterrestrial vibe. In fact, if you look closely, his massive, expanded head design looks incredibly similar to Albedo's Ultimate Gray Matter from the Omniverse era. It is a brilliant visual callback for deep lore fans. However, from a purely practical, power scaling standpoint, this new Dynamite design has a major flaw. That oversized brain makes him way too easily detectable. The entire strategic purpose of gray matter is stealth and evasion, but walking around with a heavy, punchable head just makes him an incredibly easy target in a physical fight. The classic design was perfectly proportioned for slipping into tight spaces and remaining totally unseen. I don't have problem with big head, but here his head looks oversized. Because of this, I have to give classic gray matter this point. Upgrade. I love both versions of Upgrade. They both share the same iconic face, but the Dynamite version goes for a much more realistic approach. The green circuit patterns aren't as geometrically perfect as the classic one. Instead, they look like organic veins. His hands also look incredibly muscular, which is a really cool visual. Both versions look fantastic, so this one is a tie for me. For XLR8, it's obvious they tried to take heavy inspiration from the Xenomorph from Alien. I totally encourage that horror direction, but the art style execution is so messy that it fails to deliver on whatever they were trying to make here. If you look closely, you can see his wheels are sharp, but just way too big. The helmet is oversized compared to his body, and his eyes awkwardly seem to sit completely outside of his visor. Now, recent cover art has fixed some of these proportional problems, but I still really miss the classic XLR8 tail and wheel design. The classic version easily wins this round. Wildvine looks perfect in every single piece of art. He looks like he can actively transform himself to grow into an even bigger, more monstrous entity, so Wildvine takes the win for the comic. As for Stinkfly, he looks much more bug-like than the classic one. The tail looks slightly different, it's pointy instead of shield, but he looks like a disgusting real-life insect. And honestly, that's exactly what I like about the Absolute version's art style. Every single alien looks so hyper-real that it completely fills up the urge to finally see a high-budget live-action Ben 10 movie. So, who wins? Well, I am not declaring anyone the ultimate winner just yet, and here is the exact reason why. Dynamite is heavily marketing this as a horror monster comic book for Ben 10, but they haven't included the actual original horror aliens. Where are Ghost Freak, Rip Jaws, and Wild Mutt? Leaving them out of a horror-centric comic is a huge negative point for me. Another negative point is the character designs, concepts. Cover arts are cool and absolute masterpieces. However, when you look inside at the actual comic book pages, there are a lot of art style and panel errors. The interior illustrations can feel rushed, with character proportions shifting wildly from page to page. The 2005 animated show had a much more reliable, consistent visual baseline, so this is a significant strike against the new comic. Because of the interior art inconsistencies and the missing horror roster, I can't crown the Absolute comic a flawless winner over the classic series just yet. We need to see how they handle the darkest aliens in the Omnitrix before we make a final call. I will definitely be making a part 2 to this video as soon as we get more alien and villain designs, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it.